Welcome to the Pony Pundits for Friday, July 31st. I am your host, Marco D'Angelo. Very special show today. We got a special guest, but first I got to bring in my partner in crime, my co-host, SIG. You can follow him on Twitter, SIG Las Vegas, and he's donning the purple today. He got the memo. And that's a little bit of a hint to why today's a special show. We're also going to bring in our special guest, Jeff Zidek. He is the track announcer for the Meadows. The Meadows you've heard me talk about many times. That's my home track. That's where I race horses, harness racing. And Saturday, it's the Pace for the Orchids, the biggest race in Pennsylvania for harness racing, standard brand industry. Jeff, good to have you on board. You're the one guy doesn't have purple on today. What's going on?
The Meadows colors are red and black, so I'm wearing. Just give me a break. It's gonna be a long hour, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gonna be. But guys, I know we primarily do thoroughbred racing on the show. This is gonna be the first time we're gonna actually break down harness race for you guys here, and the reason for it is this is a race that, for me as a kid, probably is what made me fall in love with horse racing, the Adios. I used to go to the track with my dad all the time, and I look forward to, back in the day, the Adios was actually ran during the month of August. Now they've moved it up here to the end of July, early August for the racing, and it just was always one of the highlights of my summer. You'd come to the Meadows, and back then, the Adios, there was always eliminations because there'd be several horses that would enter this race. And back in the day, Jeff, remember when they ran heats? I know you guys last weekend had the eliminations to get into this week's race, but back in the old days, you came right back and you ran the eliminations and ran the final on the same day, and that was pretty taxing on the horses back in the day.
I believe it was from the last time, from the last elimination, you had to have 1 hour until the final. And so, I mean, just that anticipation, getting to see those horses race twice in one day, that really solidified some of those winners as iron horses. And yeah, it was a great day because you had everybody there all in one day. So tomorrow we've got 9 horses going, but just imagine when you had 18, 27 horses all there with a shot to win it on the actual day. It was a great time.
Yeah, for me, I've never had a horse in the Adios, but I did have a horse race in the Philly edition of this race called the Adio Volo, and I've only raced once in the Adio Volo, and I can say I'm batting 1,000. We won our division of the Adio Volo with my horse, Winning Skylight, all the way back in 1994. Man, I'm dating myself. Sig, I know we're putting you on the spot today, having you break down a harness race with us. You're the thoroughbred expert, but handicapping's handicapping, and I'm sure you're going to do just fine. And I know you're excited, and you donned the purple. And I can remember a few years back, myself, my wife, you, our good friend who passed away back a few years back, Mark, we all had a great day at the Adios, getting the tent. They used to have the tent down trackside. Be a little different this year with no spectators with the times that we have right now, but that was fun. The big tent right on the apron as they're coming down the stretch, and food, drink, good times. But let's break this down because, Jeff, I understand the Meadows, this is already the biggest, race of the meet for you guys. You sweetened the pot a little bit for handicappers. Tell us about the promotion regarding the Adios, when the Adios is the 15th race on the Saturday card at the Meadows. Tell us what's going on with that race.
Well, traditionally, we have the Super High Five, which is a jackpot pool race, and we have that on our last race of the day. And so when we got through it on Tuesday with yet another day where it didn't get hit, that pushed the carryover up around 23,000 or so. And so we talked about it and decided, let's go ahead and freeze it. Let's not take a chance on having it get hit on Wednesday and having to start fresh on Saturday. Let's freeze it Wednesday, carry it over to Saturday. And instead of doing it on the last race of the day, let's do it on the Adios itself, because as we'll get into, that horse or that race became much, much more competitive. It's going to be a very good race for the handicapping and for the betting. So we're going to then guarantee the pool up to 50,000, which it'll go likely far beyond that. And we're also going to make it a mandatory payout. So instead of being a jackpot pool race where you only have one single winning ticket, this week it's going to go on Saturday. So if there are 10 winning tickets, they're going to share that pool of whatever it is. So that's going to draw in a lot of bettors. Hopefully it's going to bring in some guys that traditionally only play thoroughbreds, and we're going to make them take a look at our big race, because it's going to be an excellent race, competitive field, and that super high five jackpot is going to be a mandatory payout, and it's going to get split up a few ways, and it's still going to pay well.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited about, and why I decided to include the Adios on this week's show, and reached out to you to see if you would be interested in joining us. And I'm glad to have you aboard.
Well, it was this or cut grass. So,
well, cut grass. What? Yeah. I don't understand that concept. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the beauties of living out here in Las Vegas, plus the fact I didn't cut my grass when I was in Pennsylvania, anyways, is Jeff could attest to that. He knows.
I probably did cut it for you a couple of times. I don't know. I was hurting for money there for a while. It's like, hey, you need your grass cut, Marco? You need the pool?
Yeah, no problem. You were an aspiring young college student. You worked for me back in the day, and doing with my business, answering phones and stuff. So appreciate that. But look at it. We've come full circle. Here we are. I used to go to the Adios as a kid with my dad. Here we are. I have my own show with SIG, and we're talking about the Adios. And I'm talking about the Adios with a guy that was working for me when he was going to college, and now is the voice of the Meadows. That's pretty surreal when you sit back and think about it.
It is, and it also means we're getting old.
This is it. I'd have to say, and I did text you last Saturday morning before the Adios eliminations, and wished you luck on your first official being the man calling the races for the Adios. For as long as I can remember, Roger Houston has been the voice of the Meadows, and I'm sure it had to be a weird day for Roger, being the first time he wasn't calling the Adios in forever, and for you getting to call the Adios. And man, you got to call a special race, and a little bittersweet for the owners of that, and we'll talk about that. But Jeff, your racing style, Roger would get excited. I mean, Roger made every race seem like it was the Super Bowl sometimes. You're more a little low-keyed. You don't get that excited, but the decibels went up a little bit on Saturday in one of the eliminations of the Adios. And tell us about that. Was that your first world record race call?
Yeah, I just wish I'd have known it was a world record when it was happening. It's funny because the one thing, I knew we had a chance for a track record. I never even looked up to see what the world record was, because remember, this was a $25,000 purse elimination race. I would have been prepared for a world record perhaps in the final tomorrow, which is going for $375,000. But when you see a $25,000 elimination race, you're not expecting to see a world record in any type of race like that. This was the race before the race. So, again, it was completely unexpected. I fully admit I shirked my duties there. I did not look up to see what the world record was. Right after it happened, my phone starts lighting up, people saying, hey, that was a world record. I'm like, oh, okay, there we go. So, it was completely unexpected. But as you said, an unfortunate circumstance, which is what has left this race, with a fact that a world record holder who you would think would be the heavy favorite this week, he's not in the race.
Yeah, in that world record performance, he did it under wraps. This is what's more amazing, is I'm watching that race, and I'm looking. David Miller never moved the lines on the horse at all, and he kept drawing off, and it's a shame. And I had to, I'm going to give you a jab. I always do.
There'll be one coming back. Don't worry.
Yeah, and I texted you and I said, I've never ever seen you get that excited, because you are always pretty even keel, never get excited. The only time that came close to me seeing you that excited is you were calling the track record, as you knew at the time, not realizing it was a world record, was the last time you were in Vegas, and we went to one of our favorite restaurants together, as we always do on every one of your trips, Herbs and Rye. And my buddy Sig's been there many times too. And, we generally all order the same steak from the place. And when they come out, there's, stakes not always are the exact same size. And when she laid the biggest stake on the platter in front of you, you thought that you just called your world record. I mean, you were extremely.
That was hitting the lottery for me because, normally they would look at me and look at you like, we better give him the big stake, but I got lucky that day. They gave me the big stake. It was a good night. So
yeah, I guess
that was the night you remembered which steakhouse we were going to. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I ended up at the wrong one because we have two that we always go to. All right, let's jump into the adios for Saturday. And with the unfortunate missing the world record holder from last week, as you said, this makes this race wide open. And Jeff, SIG's a big thoroughbred handicapper. And one of the things, to me, the biggest difference between harness handicapping and thoroughbred handicapping is the easiest part is you don't have to deal with different distances. Occasionally we have other distances, but they're not that common. Most every race is run at 1 mile. When you're handicapping thoroughbreds, you got it. Is this a 5.5 furlong, 6, 7 furlong? Are they stretching them out to a mile and an eighth, mile and a quarter? And those different distances add, a lot of questions in your handicapping. Can this horse get the distance? How is this horse in 2 turns? And so forth. With harness racing, we still deal with turns because obviously if you're on a half-mile track and you're running a mile racetrack, you're going around 5/8, you're going around 1.5 times. And of course, if it's a mile track like the Meadowlands, where a lot of these horses that are in the Adios final were racing out east, the Meadowlands being one of the premier tracks for harness racing, and they just had a couple weeks ago their big race, the Meadowlands Pace. So that was a over $600,000 race. So you don't have to deal with as much uncertainty. But what does come into play more so than thoroughbred racing, in my opinion, is the trip. You've got to handicap who you think's going to be on top, because they don't go 4 and 5 wide into the turns like they do in thoroughbred racing. You want to get position, you want to get to the rail. Then whenever you make your move, you really don't want to be that horse that makes the first move and first over. You're covering extra ground, you're taking the air, and then you're giving a trip to the horse that's behind you, and we call that second over. And then, of course, the horse that's cutting the mile, although he's saving ground because he's at the rail, he is taking the brunt of doing all of the work, or heavy lifting, as you'd like to say. And then the horse that's sitting second at the rail, or people like to say the garden spot. Sometimes that garden spot becomes the death trap when you get locked in. So trip is a big thing. And I'm going to let you start breaking down this race, and then Sig and myself will jump in with our thoughts. And I like this race. I think it's going to be a fun betting race.
It is going to be a great betting race. So first thing you need to understand is that the 3 winners select their post positions. Of course, the one horse that won, that's the world record holder, Poppy Rob Hanover, he's not here. So that means there were 2 horses that got to actually select their posts. They drew by lot to see who got the first choice. Catch the Fire got first choice. He picked post 3. And then the Greek Freak ends up taking post 4. So they've got the 2 preferred posts. As you said, trip comes down to everything in here. And I've tried to trip handicap this race, but you've got a couple of factors that make it very difficult. First off, you've got 2 horses on the far outside, the 8 and the 9. It's one of those situations in racing with these 2 horses. If they don't leave the gate, their chance to win is going to be minimal. If they sit back, they're going to be so far back, they really are going to have a hard time trying to get a win. But again, the owners make money on the top 5 finishers. You're going for $375,000. Even 5th place is good. So the question is, do you make an aggressive move from these outside horses, or do you sit back and try to hope for 3rd, 4th, or 5th, something like that? If those 2 horses on the outside leave, all bets are off as far as what's going to happen in there, because that just completely changes the complexion of the race. I think most people that handicap are going to handicap and say that the 8 and the 9 are not going to cause any problems early. They're going to sit toward the back and not screw up what's going on with the inside horses. But the wild card to me in this race is the 5. The 5 is no losing. And this horse, One of the most interesting parts with this is a horse that has a driver. This is the only horse he drives. You look up this driver and you won't find that he has driven anything else in the last week other than this one horse. Picture going into a big race such as the Haskell, and you've got a horse that shows up with a jockey that this is the only horse he rides in the entire country for the entire week. It's a unique situation. And so I think this is a driver who he's got his big shot with this horse tomorrow. His driver's name is Jose Fonseca. I think he's going to be out and moving and doing anything he can. If you have one shot, you're not going to want to take a chance on getting locked in. There is no tomorrow for this driver or this horse. So I think he's going to be very, very aggressively driven. If he does not go for the front out of the gate, he's going to get to the outside very, very early, like way earlier than you would see most horses moving to the outside. So that being a wild card in this race, it makes it very tough to handicap. My trip handicapping, I even went against my normal trip handicapping because most everything I'm doing trying to figure out how this race is going to set up, I think the 2 Captain Midnight is going to end up in a very difficult position. He's either going to get locked in or he's going to have to be that first horse to move to the outside and take all the air. However, he did it last week and he did it very successfully as he only lost by just a few inches last week. And so I'm actually going, normally in this type of race where you have elimination race winners, those are the ones you look at, those are the ones you favor. I'm going with a horse that finished second in his elimination, and that's Captain Midnight. Catch the Fire, I think, is going to get a good trip. He's going to be out on the front early. I think he's either going to be leading the race or sitting second at the half and put himself in a good spot to win. I picked him second, and I'm taking the wild card horse for third. No losing. I got 2, 3, 5. The 4, the Greek Freak. Here's a horse that a month ago, June 28th, he broke his maiden. He was 0 for 10 in his career before that, I believe, something like that. And he had never even, he had never won a race. And all of a sudden now he's won 4 straight and he's one of the favorites in the Adios. I got him on my ticket 4th. And then for 5th, I'm throwing in a horse that reversed his usual racing style. So SIG, whether it's thoroughbred or Marco, whether it's harness, you've got horses that always go for the front or horses that always go to the back. This horse almost always goes for the front. He dropped in last week. Total shock to everybody that he sat last. Everybody else starts moving to the outside in the turn. He just came right up the inside, never had to slow down, came right up the inside and got third and qualified for the final, and that's the 7 Chief Mate. So my super high 5 ticket for that race tomorrow is 2, 3, 5, 4, 7. I expect the 2 to be the third choice in the race, so there could be some value there.
I'm going to jump in, and Sig knows that whenever we talk about trip handicapping, and I do trip how I think the race is going to play out in thoroughbreds, and Sig and I generally knock heads on where I see the horses, who's going to, set the pace, who's going to be the horse on the flank and so forth. And I'm going to do the same to you, my friend. The 5 will not leave. Okay, it's suicide if the 5 leaves, in my opinion, because what's going to happen is he's going to use, if he does leave, he's going to use the horse leaving. And even if he gets to the front, there's going to be 2 horses that are going to retake on him, and he's going to be sitting third anyway. So why use up all of that energy then to be sitting third where you're then committed to staying inside because you already used a move leaving the gate? You're going to just have to sit and wait and hope because you're not going to pop back out and be first over out of the 3-hole. I think he ducks to the rail because the 3 is going to leave and the 4 is going to leave. The 4 will get the front. Now, the question will be, will Wilder sit with the 2-hole trip on Catch the Fire, or will he pull and make a move? He may make the move because I also think the horse that is going to try to leave for a little bit for position will be the 2, and he might drop in third, or he's just going to sit, let them hurry up, everybody gets settled, and pop at the quarter and do the retake. I don't think Captain Midnight wants to do the retake at the quarter. I think he will let the horses on the front end. I think the Greek Freak, although you look at his lines and they're great, I mean, how can you fault the horse? He's got 4 straight wins. And as you said, what happened last year as a 2-year-old? 9 starts. Not only did he not win a race last year in 9 starts, he didn't hit the board. Okay, so a dramatic change for him, and I think for him to cut them out in this field, I just don't think that he could hold on to do it, and that's why it's going to give Catch the Fire if he gets out or retakes. I think Catch the Fire is going to have a good trip. But I agree with you. Captain Midnight, to me, is the best horse in the race. This horse can live on the outside forever. And if you go down to the bottom, when he was racing in a lesser class starting the season, the qualifier, he made an early move and then cut the rest of the mile, did the same thing in his first race of the season. But then you look at his other races at the Meadowlands, and let's face it, the Meadowlands horses do take a lot of air there. I mean, it's a mile track, so you're not dealing with the turns as bad as if you let's put it this way. You couldn't get away with those type of trips, say at Northfield on a half-mile track, being out for 3/4 of the race with cover. You can do that at the Meadowlands. At the Meadows, it's in between. We're a 5/8 mile track, and unfortunately at the Meadows, we don't see a lot of movement early because the racing style here as compared to Scioto, for example, which is a 5/8 mile track as well, or Pocono Downs, another one that I'll compare to. Here we seem to race more that first eighth of a mile, and everybody gets position, and then they slow the second quarter down, and then we sprint home the last half of the race. There you're seeing more equal quarters where there's more movement, and horses that maybe are third or fourth over end up getting the perfect trip by the time they hit the top of the stretch. I think Captain Midnight will be the horse that's going to be sitting third or fourth, and he will be the first horse to move. And why I don't think the 5 is going to move early and leave the gate is because he's going to tie himself to the bumper of Captain Midnight and follow him around the racetrack second over. And that's why I agree with the horses you have on top, but I am putting the 5 second. I think he's going to get a big trip. And if Captain Midnight has to fight off that horse at the top of the stretch and gives up a little bit too much energy trying to get past the leader. How many times have you seen it? You've called how many races in your life? You put away the horse on the front end and you think you're clear, and that last 16th of a mile, that other horse, that hasn't really been used and following, then just pops out and has that burst of speed. And we see that at the Meadowlands all the time, that final 8th or 16th of a mile, horses with that big burst. So that's how I'm seeing it. I have the 3 third. I agree with you on the 7. And if you look at that, and granted, they never used the horse. So sometimes when you look and see a change of a style, don't overreact and say, oh, that's the new thing. Because as you said, he was never used, and the parted like the Red Sea for him to come up the inside. That usually doesn't happen. But consequently, you got to see a 26-1 last quarter from this horse, which you never saw that before because he was on the front end. He used a lot of energy early in the race. So I think he can sneak up and get some of this at the end. And then I have the 4 Greek Freak in there because this is a horse, he's done nothing wrong this year. It's hard to step in front of him. And then I'll go for 6th horse here if you're looking on the tail end for that super high 5. Sweet Truth, I think, has a chance to sneak in at the bottom of the super high 5. If one of these horses that was on the front got into a battle and then dies, a lot of times we've seen it, Jeff, where a horse gets passed by 1 or 2 horses and then the horse just, ends up quit. I don't want to say quits, but you know what? Their spirit's broken, and you see them end up, they're never worse than 1st or 2nd, and all of a sudden you're seeing them 5th or 6th in a race because they did get passed. And I think the 6 will be closing at the end as well. Sig, let's kick it over to you. So you've been quiet so far. Trust me, you'll have a lot to say in the second half of the show. But how do you see the Adios?
I was trying to nap over here, but I guess I got to join in now. You just poked holes in my pick here, so I went on 4, the Greek Freak, coming in here off of 4 straight wins. Seems like the race on the front. He like you said, he may get run down here, but I like where he's starting at. I also like the 3 Catch the Fire, who you guys both mentioned, and I ended up on a long shot here as my 3rd choice. Elver Hanover. You guys said about the Greek Freak not winning or hitting the board at all in 9 starts in his 2-year-old season. This horse won every race in his 2-year-old season, which I found amazing. Nine starts, 9 wins in his 2-year-old season. comes back. He didn't come back until May, qualifiers in May and June, and then came back, won, had a second and a third, running in decent company here. And each start he's gotten a little faster. So if you guys are looking for a long shot, he's 10-1, your morning line. I'm sure he's going off a little higher than that. But I like the 9 Elver Hanover at a price.
Yeah, 9 for 9 is a 2-year-old. A lot of times, Jeff, we've seen in the industry horses that really are put to the test at 2, a lot of times don't come back at 3 as strong. You know, it's a hard campaign, and generally, harness racing compared to thoroughbreds, the thing that I like about it is you get a horse, you can get 30 starts on a season, where 30 starts is a very, very long career in thoroughbred racing. But for 2-year-olds, generally we keep it to single digits, number of races, because you don't want to hurt a 2-year-old. You want to build the foundation, you want to get the education, but the economics of racing is you got to get your money at 2 and 3. That's where the big money is in racing. So you got to pick your spots. A 9 for 9 campaign, pretty hard to argue with, but most of that was done on the Ohio Fair Circuit. And I don't want to bash Ohio, but I think the Pennsylvania Sire Stakes is stronger than Ohio's. But he did show up and race at Lexington at 2 and put up a big 48 and change mile as a 2-year-old.
Well, I think if he had the inside race, we'd be talking a lot more about him. It's just the post is what eliminated him from my top 5, not because he's not a good enough horse. It's just strictly the post.
Yeah, so often when the draw comes out, they shake the bottle and pull the pill, and sometimes you just got to swallow the pill when you get that dreaded 9-hole, especially if you're racing over on a half-mile track and you draw the outside, you're done. But it'll be interesting for that. Anything else you want to add, Sig?
That's all I got, Jeff. Enjoy your first time.
Thank you, Sig.
All right, guys. And again, head over, check out the Meadows. What is post time tomorrow, Jeff?
First race will be 11:25 in the morning. The Adios itself will be right around 4 o'clock.
Right around 4 o'clock. And you've got a big, is it a 16 race card tomorrow?
16. And again, the Adios is the 15th, and that Super High 5 on the 15th as well. So a big day overall, really is.
I remember back in the day, you did call races on Adios Day, even when Roger was there, because Adios Day was a big card. We would have 15, 16 races, and Roger would take a couple races off to rest his voice for the big Adios. Now 15 race cards are the norm. You don't get anybody to tag and come in for a couple.
No, and well, at least we don't have the double headers anymore. We used to have the double headers. We'd wrap up the Adios around 6 o'clock, and then 8:05 we'd start up with another 11 race card that night. So those were some long days, but they were good days.
Totally forgot about that. And really, and going back, remember when they used to have the yearling auction?
Yeah, right in the middle. Yeah, right
in the middle. Yeah, that was always. Yeah, I had to keep my hands in my pocket. Bid. All right, let's head to got a couple announcements before we head to Race of the Day. Race of the Day Part 2 is going to be a programming change. You know that Wager Talk has 2 live shows every weekday, Monday through Friday, noon and 3 Eastern. And we've been in that 3 o'clock spot since we started, but we're moving next week. We're going to be at 1 o'clock Eastern next week, and there's still going to be 2 shows daily. We've got more shows than we got time slots right now, so we had to juggle around, add some times in now that we've got baseball. Football is going to be just around the corner. NBA started last night. It's exciting times for Wager Talk. We got soccer rolling, MMA, UFC. Check it all out. We've got shows covering everything, racing, cars as well, horses, anything you can race, we're covering it here at Wager Talk. So be sure to check out all of those shows. And I have to make mention, because he is the producer running the ship back there in the studio, if I don't mention that he's won 13 straight baseball games, our beloved Prez, he might actually mute my mic. So shout out to Prez, 13 straight wins in Major League Baseball. He is trying to go for the world record. Sig, do you know who has the world record number of baseball wins consecutive?
I believe his name's Marco D'Angelo. 25, maybe?
Hey, you know what? When I want to know stats and numbers, I go to Sig. He knows them all. And yes, you are correct. So you go to the lightning round. And as I told Prez this morning, I'm rooting for you for the next 11. You're on your own when you're going for number 25. I'm sorry. I'm not that guy that shows up and, wants to shake the hand of the guy that beats his record. All right. Let's head into where Sig's happy. This has been his second home. I mean, Jeff, the guy loves going to the spa. I mean, he goes, he gets a massage, he's got people feeding him grapes and everything at the spa. He's spent the last few weeks at Saratoga. This is his time of the year. He loves Keeneland. He loves Saratoga. We've got one of the most prestigious races of the Saratoga meet going on Saturday. Now, it's only a 5-horse field. But, Jeff, when I texted you, I said, wouldn't you like to own a horse in a 5-horse field going for $750,000? That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing Saturday at Saratoga. It is the Whitney. And, Sig, since you've just talked so much already today, I'll just let you continue, and we'll open it with you. Tell us how you see the race of the day, which happens to be race 9, Saturday at Saratoga.
Okay, guys, the Whitney is race 9. As Marco said, we're going 9 furlongs on the dirt for 4-year-olds and up. It is a 5-horse field. I think 4 of the 5 and definitely have a shot at winning this race. The question is going to be how the pace shapes up here. And I think the one horse that I don't think can win this race is the 4, Mr. Buff. I see him being the early pace setter. The question is going to be how this race shakes out behind them. And let's just go through the field here real quick. The one horse is By My Standards, 9-2 on your morning line. We have Jose Ortiz in the irons for trainer Brett Calhoun. By My Standards hasn't done anything wrong over the last year. His only loss since last year's Kentucky Derby was to Tom's Day Ata, who's also in this field, in the Stephen Foster Churchill last month. What I do find interesting on By My Standards in this race is that Jose Ortiz is hopping on board. He's the leading jockey right now at Saratoga. As of the time we were going on air, he had won 22 races in the first few weeks here at the Saratoga meet. Of course, his brother Ira's right behind him there. But Jose hasn't ridden for Brett Calhoun in the past year, so for him hopping on this horse, it definitely changes up the dynamics on the horse here. I still have By My Standards here. I think finishing 4th in this race. I want to like this colt here. I don't think he's a win candidate, though. What do you guys think?
Yeah, By My Standards is just, I think, a notch below the top 2 horses in this race, really top 3. And I agree, the horse you got to use underneath, but I don't think By My Standards can get the win. But again, this is a horse, 10 starts. You've got 5 wins, 3 seconds and a third, $1.3 million in the bank, 130,000 per start you're averaging. I'll take a horse like that anytime. Jeff, any thoughts on By My Standard?
Just that I look at the fact that he couldn't go with Tom's Day Tot last week. He couldn't go with him last start. I don't think he can go with him this start. And I'm actually going to go against what Sig said, in that, again, this is my harness mind kicking in, because I do see some 5-horse fields once in a while, especially when you're talking smaller county fair racing. A lot of times you have 5-horse fields. In harness racing, when I see a 5-horse field, and if I think my horse is the best, I want that horse right out on the front. Control things. Be in control. Don't take any chance on anything going wrong in the short field, because the money's too easy, so to speak, in a short field. You're guaranteed, a good opportunity. So I do think the 5 is going right out to the lead today. So I will be personally surprised if it's anybody other than the 5 that's out on front early.
Sig, the second horse here, the number 2, Improbable, was very good to me last time out. Me and you saw things a little differently in that race, and I let you know it the rest of that day, which I always do, and you let me know too. But I'm not coming back with Improbable. As much as I liked him in his last start, I like a horse better in this race. And it's funny, the horse that I like better in this race that I bet last time finished third in his race, and Improbable won for me. So you'd think I would be more loyal to the horse that cashed me the winning ticket as opposed to the horse that finished third. But that third place finish by Code of Honor, to me, was more impressive than Improbable's win. So let's just kind of talk both horses, they're side by side. How do you see Improbable and Code of Honor?
Just to touch on what you just said, guys, the only thing that you're basically attached to is your bankroll. Not a horse, not a bet, just your bankroll. You do what's best for your bankroll at all times. Improbable, yes, we disagreed at the Hollywood Gold Cup, and you basically made me look like an ass, and I do that myself sometimes. But Bob Baffert has this horse fit. He's been working, he worked back-to-back 7 furlongs at Del Mar here before shipping out. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I think this one comes down to 2 horses can win this race. Improbable is one of them. The next horse we're going to talk about, Code of Honor, is going to be the other one that I'm going to land on in this race here. But I don't see, other than the shipping being an issue, Improbable not having a good shot in this race. I see both him and Code of Honor sitting just off the early pace, and they both hold tactical speed. It's going to be a matter of who goes first. And if one of them goes first too early, I do see Thomas Deata and Joe Rosario looking for that big finish.
Jeff, Code of Honor, as I talked about, finished third in his last race. And in that race, and the reason why I was so impressed with him finishing third is he was coming lightly raced. It was only his second start. And he didn't break well from the gate. So he got further back than he normally would be. And they set a pace where Vekoma was on the front end and just wired the field. Nobody even got to Vekoma. It was a very easy win. He was uncontested on the lead. And we talk about sometimes, Jeff, in racing, and people don't understand. They look at times and such, and they don't understand where if a horse went at a certain speed last week, why, if he went slower this week, why didn't he go as fast? Well, it's fractions. And a lot of times, you get those fractions and a horse has to use himself. It's different I would rather have a horse going a few fifths of a second faster than he went the week before, but be uncontested, than to be going maybe a few fifths of a second slower through the fractions, but have a horse at his throat the entire time, because the horse uses energy differently. And people don't understand that. Vekoma had an easy race. Nobody got to him. And that day, the track bias was really favoring front end speed. And Code of Honor was the only horse in that race making up ground as he was flying through the stretch. He got away as far as 8th in that race, ended up being 3rd, only beat a length and a half. And again, when you look at the final fractions, and that's something that I told SIG about when you're looking at harness racing, one of the first things I always look at is that final quarter time. That's the truest test of what a horse has left. But you've got to understand where the horse was in the race. How much did he use early? Because that's going to take away from what he has late. This horse was flat out flying. And I think now, being the 3rd start off of the season, 3rd start off the layoff, that's the best for form cycle. And I think Code of Honor flips the script and gets the win.
Well, again, not having that knowledge of watching that race last time with the track bias, that makes a difference. But I'm still looking at this 5, Tom's Day Todd. I think he's going to go out and try to control things. I think he's going to be able to hold on, is what I'm hoping. But Improbable is the main one that I think can get to him. Improbable, you're hard to fault, again, a horse that's coming off a big win like that. So I like the race between those two. The 3 was my 3rd pick in there. The one thing I can say, whether it's harness racing or thoroughbred racing, with a short field, anything can happen. And you've got, if you're sitting last and they're tightly packed, you're very close. In harness racing, it's a lot different too. You've got 9 horses and you've got them all in a line. That 9th place horse has a lot of ground to make up. But when there's only a 5-horse field, everybody's a lot closer. Now, in thoroughbreds, if somebody breaks poorly, they're going to spot them a bunch of ground. If everybody gets out of the gate and they all get out to a reasonable start, it's anybody's race, because these are, when you get into a stake race, obviously of this caliber, they're quality horses. Nobody's throwing a bad horse into this race. So you've got 5 quality horses that should be all within just a couple of lengths at the top of the stretch, and that's going to make for a good race. A little disappointing for the wagering purposes that there's only 5, but I deserves to be 2-5 in this race.
No, it'll be a competitive betting board. 4 of the 5 have a legitimate shot of winning this race. And I agree with Sig's opening statement. The one horse that I don't think has a shot in here is the 4 horse, but he is a horse that can really make it difficult for other horses because he does have that early speed. And, if somebody wants to run with him early, it could take a little bit out of them. But Tom Stata, Sig, this is what we don't get to see in horse racing is a 7-year-old still racing and racing at the top of his game. We've talked about it so many times. Horses, they race at 2, they race at 3, and off to the breeding shed they go, because that's where the money's at. And you don't get those superstars where people get to fall in love with horses. I've made the association with, I think back to the day how I really liked thoroughbred racing when I was watching Cigar going all over the country, racing in all of the big races, and not being afraid to put his streak on the line. He had that long winning streak going, and people got to watch the horse and fall in love with the horse. And when you don't have a Triple Crown winner, and we had that long gap, how many years in thoroughbred racing without a Triple Crown winner, you need those older horses to keep the sport going, in my opinion, to keep the fans there. And Tom Stata, he wins this race, he's going to be in line and in the conversation for Horse of the Year. Plain and simple. What do you think?
Definitely. The way he's run this year. What I find interesting about Tom Stata in this race, though, is if you went back and looked at the last race when he won the Stephen Foster, Rosario wasn't that day. Rosario's been riding him consistently here. And on the day of the Stephen Foster, he basically took them wire to wire, but Miguel Mena was in the irons. When Rosario rides his horse like he is going to on Saturday, he likes to take him back. He likes to make that one big run. You see Joel do that basically with almost every horse he rides. He very rarely takes a horse out to the lead and keeps him on the lead. He likes to make that late run. Tom Stata likes to make that late run. I just feel the way the race sets up here, Code of Honor and Probable are going to be more forwardly placed. And with their tactical speed, I think one of those two is going to have enough left in the tank in his late charge here. But if he pulls this off again and makes it 3 in a row here for the year, he's definitely in line for Horse of the Year.
All right, guys, and this is the first leg of the pick 4 that we are doing at Saratoga. All 3 of us are going to give you a pick 4 because we have the 3 of us on today, and we talked a good bit about the Adios. We're going to run through these other legs. Sig, I'm going to ask you, how are you going leg 1 of your pick 4 ticket?
I did go 3 deep here, guys. We just talked about it. I have Code of Honor on top, the 3, the 2 Improbable, and I'm using the 5 Tom Stata defensively here.
Jeff, your first leg?
5 over the 2. I'll use them both, though, in the pick 4, so 5 and 2.
5-2, and I'm going 2 deep here. I'm going 3-5, and trust me, it scares me to leave Improbable off, but I want to make the ticket a reasonable price tag, being that we only have 5 horses in this one. I didn't want to go 3 deep here, so I'm putting the 3 on top and the 5 second for my first leg. Now, as we go through the rest of these, what I will do is I will ask you your numbers, Sig, and then give me a sentence or 2 on one horse that you want to mention that's on your ticket for that race. Let's go to race 10. And what is your numbers for race 10?
Well, guys, I went 6 deep here. I went with the 6, the 8, the 4, the 5, the 11, and the 2. Guys, these are all 3-year-olds here racing at 7 furlongs. Some of these horses were on the Derby Trail, some weren't. The one I want to point out, though, is my second choice in here, the 8, 3 Technique, 6-1, your morning line. Jose Ortiz is riding for trainer Jeremiah Englehart. This horse has been on my radar since last summer. He made a huge closing effort in his second start, breaking his maiden at Saratoga. And he was trying the Derby Trail until he had an ankle injury that required surgery back following the Rebel in March. The connections after the surgery don't feel that he is a Derby Trail horse. They like him going shorter. I like this 7 furlong distance. Being the first start off that injury is going to be interesting, but I think if he's ready to go and sound, he's definitely a factor in here.
Jeff, your second leg?
All right, I'll go quickly because I gotta hope we have time at the end. I got a Marco story. 6, 4, 11. Watch out for the 11 today. That's Tap It to Win. Tap It to Win went to the front in the Belmont and tired badly, lost by 14 lengths. But he tried to come back for the Belmont on just 16 days off. That was just a little too quick. And I think he's had a lot more time now. He's had a good 5-6 weeks off. I think he's going to be a little better today. So 6, 4, 11. Watch out for the 11.
I'm going 6, 5, 4. No question. Number 6, No Parole is the horse to beat. But I'm going to give you a quick note, point out on number 5, Mischievous Alex. That horse, his last race, you might look at the line and say, hey, was running second most of the race and then faded to fourth. And he lost to No Parole. So why do I think he could turn the tables today? That was his first start in 3.5 months. He needed that start. And if you look at it, yes, No Parole won by open lengths, 3 3/4 lengths, but he didn't get beat for second by that much. He hung tough till deep stretch before he gave up second. I think he's much better this time out. Look for him at a price. Sig, go to race 11.
Race 11, the Bowling Green Stakes. I went 4 deep in here. I have the 6, the 5, the 4, and the 2. There's a 6, Sadler's Joy on top. It's now a 7-year-old horse. A lot of people believe this horse has lost a step, but I still think he's the best closer in this field. He loves Saratoga with 2 wins and 5 in the money finishes here. Sadler's Joy out here. I have him on top.
Jeff, where are you at?
I'm at 6, 5, 7. Pillar Mountain. Just his first start of the season last time out, and a very nice closing effort. So he's my long shot special. He's 12-1 on the morning line. So 6, 5, 7, going 3 deep into that one.
I'm going 3 deep as well, guys. I'm going 5, 6, 2. And guys, this is obviously this one, Sadler's Joy, ultra consistent horse, always hitting the board. But I'm going to point out, same as last race, look at Channel Maker. Last start was running second all the way through, then ended up finishing 4th, beaten only a length. But this is the 3rd start off of the layoff. I think this horse still needed a start. This is the 3rd start. Form cycle-wise, this is generally the best. And if you look at that race where he finished 4th, Instilled Regard is a very good horse that he lost to. And Rock Emperor is another horse that Sig and I have been high on this summer. Another good horse. So, yes, finished just behind Sadler's Joy, but Channel Maker for only having 2 starts leading into that race. I'm going to go ahead, look for them to turn the table here. I think this is your price horse, Channel Maker. Watch him number 5, but I'm going 3 deep, 5, 6, 2. And let's go to the last leg. Sig, where are you at, my friend?
I have my single here, guys. I went with the 7, the Lika, 3-1 in your morning line. Joel Rosario for trainer Al Stahl. This horse should have won his last start in the license fee stakes at Belmont. But if you guys watch that race, basically the skies opened up as that race was starting. And I mean, it just poured. It was like somebody poured a bucket of water on Belmont right during that race. The horse still closed really well from 8th to 2nd, just missing by half a length in that race. This is a half a furlong shorter here. I think Joel times this perfectly. The weather looks perfect. And I think this is still the way this horse loses on Saturday.
Jeff, where are you at in the final leg?
Long shot. I'm going 4, 5, and 2. Introduced. This is her distance. 5.5 is her distance, and the trainer certainly knows how to win. 4, 5, 2. Upset here with the 4.
All right, this is the leg that I went the deepest. I will first say I agree with Sig on the 7 is the horse to beat, but I think that if the horse does get beat, it is a wide open race after that. I am going 7, 9, 10, 2, 6, and I'm going to pull a page out of Jeff's book when we had you on the very first time in case that it gets a little chalky Yeah,
Two
you
tickets.
hit the pick four twice out of the gate. Yeah, we know. I was going to mention it. I know you wouldn't let me forget that. But my ticket, I'll run through, and then we'll get each of yours. I'm going 3-5 in race 9, 6-5-4 race 10, 5-6-2 race 11, 7-9, 10, 2-6 in race 12. Now, what I'm going to do is come back with a $1. That ticket is a $45 ticket, which is a nice ticket for good coverage, on a stakes card like that. But in case it does get a little chalky, we want to have an insurance ticket where we'll get another payout. And I'm going to make this one a full $1 ticket rather than the 50-cent ticket as that one is. We're going to go 3-5 in the first leg, 6-5 in the second leg, 5-6 in the third leg, and single the 7 in the last leg. So basically, I'm taking my top 2 from the first 3 legs and putting it with the 7, making that a $1 ticket. That's just an $8 insurance policy that if we do get the chalk in here, that we will cover with both of the tickets. Will cover the cost of the ticket, because there's nothing worse than hitting a pick 4 and making peanuts, or even worse, losing a few bucks. Sig, your ticket?
I went 3-2-5 with 6-8, 4-5, 11-2 with 6-5-4-2 with the 7. That's a $36 ticket, 50-cent base.
And Jeff, your ticket?
5-2 with 6-4-11 with 6-5-7 with 4-5 and 2. That's 54 combinations, a $27 play.
All right, great stuff, guys. I guess we're going to wrap the show up here shortly. Jeff, you something you want to you want to say something?
I've got to let the viewers know, and Sig, what a great friend you are. Because 2 weeks ago today, actually, I was supposed to be in Las Vegas enjoying a nice little vacation. And so I'm on the phone that day lamenting via text with my buddy Marco about how I can't go and get my favorite nachos. And he felt bad for me. And then about an hour later, I get a text from Mrs. Marco. And she said, "Thanks to you talking about this, I am now on my way out to pick up the nachos that you were supposed to get because he wants them." And then all of a sudden, my phone lights up with a photo, and it is Marco in his pool. He's up to here in his little rubber ducky, so he doesn't drown, and he's flipping me off. So as if it wasn't enough, the old insult was that the injury was that I couldn't be there to get my own nachos, and then the insult was that not only does he get them, but then he's flipping me off about it. So that's what a great friend to me Marco has been over the years, folks.
Jeff, on behalf of all his other friends, and I'm now back on this show, everyone can hear me. This is standard procedure, dude. I mean, Marco, like a year ago, shows up to the Friday show that I'm doing with him with a plate of donuts that were like sky high. He had like stuffed a whole one in his mouth. He couldn't even talk. Yeah. But the strange thing is, it's always about food.
Yes, it is. And Sig gets more pictures. Probably Jeff and Sig get more Las Vegas food photo pictures from me. But I will admit, at least Sig, Jeff doesn't text me back and use a 4-letter word with ER at the end of it when I send him those pictures.
Okay, wouldn't that be
usually
a 6-letter word with ER at the end?
Well,
idiot.
Well,
That is a strong point.
I mean, I'm like racking my brains, Jeff. I'm like, 4-letter word with ER. Could it be?
Wait a minute. Hey, Prez, if that's how he's doing his numbers, maybe it really wasn't 25 wins in a row. Maybe it was.
Well, I'll tell you, I was not around when he hit those 25 wins, so it's still disputable. And the fact that
it was documented. But I tell you what, I am going to do for you.
When by whom? Who, Marco? By a guy with initials as his name. Do you believe? Do you believe those documentations?
I will do for you what the guy with the initials did for me that ended my freaking streak. After I hit after I hit my 25th game, when I come in the office the next morning, he says, "We got to do a video right now. We got to do a video talking about your 25 wins. We're going to do it." Okay, thanks, guy with the initials. That's what ended the streak. So we will do a live. If you're still live at 20, we're doing a live broadcast of you with your, the day of your 25th, because I want to make sure to jinx you.
Okay, sounds like a great plan. What's up with has SIG been suntanning with a bunch of lobsters?
Yeah. You stepped away from the control booth, but I did give you a shout out during the show.
Thanks.
SIG and Jeff can attest to it. I talked about your 13 wins in a row, just so you know.
Oh, aren't you the sweetest little thing?
Yeah, well, not the little thing, but I am the sweetest. All right, guys, that has been the Pony Pundits for this week. I want to thank our special guest this week, Jeff Zidek. You can follow him at your Twitter handle again, Jeff, is Meadows_TV.
That's correct.
That is correct. Check him out tomorrow. See if he gets excited for that Adios final. Even if it isn't a track record, write down the times before you
I'll be ready.
So
good.
you know what records you're going with.
I'm good this time. Thanks.
You're good.
And by the way, if the 5 leaves, you might hear Marco get said, if the 5 leaves, because you said the 5 is not leaving. If the 5 leaves, I'm leaving from the outside, Marco. There goes the 5. Yeah, so you listen for that.
5 is not leaving, okay? I am telling you right now, the 5 is not leaving in that race. SIG, as always, great stuff. You look good in purple there, and the purple theme is the race.
Oh, that's why his face is purple.
Till next week, guys. Remember, new time, 1 o'clock. Be sure to check out SIG's race selections from Saratoga all weekend long. I'll have some best bets up. Time's a little bit more constraint for me right now because we've got all the sports starting back up, and I couldn't be happier. So check out everything at wagertalk.com and Sports Memo. And, of course, the Prez, 13 in a row. He goes for 14 in a row tonight in baseball.
My play got postponed. It was St. Louis. Something about a virus.
All right. Well, hey, that's one way to keep your streak alive. Pick postponed games.
I learned that from you, Marco.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend. And thanks, shout out to the Meadows. Having Jeff on, appreciate that. And good luck Saturday at the Meadows. Hope you hit that super high 5. And, of course, the Whitney at Saratoga. Till next week, guys, let's cash